I appreciate the opportunity today to be with Jeff Latham. And again, this setting and this podcast, the quality of people I get to sit in this chair with just continues to just blow my mind. And yet, I'm going to tell you right up front, this is a really unusual one for me, because as I've gotten to know you, Jeff, you're going to have to riff on this, but I think people see you for all of your accomplishments on the outside. But I don't know that they peel under the layer of what makes up the complex mind that allows for those accomplishments. So I've sort of titled you like the one-off, the black sheep. You play a game that few do, and that's what we're going to dig into. So, hey, here we are, and thank you for going with this, yeah?
Yeah.
Probably not good to be labeled a black sheep, but hey, you're dressed all in black, so I didn't even plan that. Maybe you did, I don't know.
I'll wear it.
Like Johnny Cash, right?
Yeah.
So I want to dive right in. I want to dive right in. A lot of times I'll go back to what formed this and that. I just want to start from a place of you think differently.
Yeah.
Pretty much across the board. And I want you to kind of take us in a direction of where, when, how, what has created this very deep, connected thinking.
Right. You know, I've always been a goal hacker. Mm-hmm. You know, they say the two master skills in life are the art of fulfillment and the science of achievement. And so...
Who is they that said that?
Well, that's Tony Robbins' quote.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I've coached with Tony Robbins in his Platinum Partnership for quite some time. And I've invested probably close to $500,000 in personal development. And so I'm always trying to figure out, like, what's the formula? What's the recipe to get the outcome I'm looking for? And right now you have the grinder mentality where you got to work hard like no one else so you can live like no one else. And to me, that's suffering. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can suffer your way to success. And so I'm just trying to, like, always just figure out, how do I get the outcome I'm looking for? And so I read a lot of books. Mm-hmm. I'm obsessed with growth. I'm obsessed with setting big goals and even putting it out there and then executing and accomplishing them and then trying to measure backwards how I did it. And it's such a fascinating concept because we're always looking for the roadmap or the plan or the recipe. And I don't think people give enough power, strength, what's the word I'm looking for, enough, they don't lean into their God-given power of being a creator. Mm-hmm. We're created by our creators to create. Mm-hmm. And there's magic there. And I think anything that we've created in life is a consequence of thought. And so, you know, you see it, you believe it, and then you see it. And so if I look at something, I can create it and accomplish it, but I don't know how the hell I'm going to get there. And it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the answer is always grind your way to get there. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense, and it's you're right. The observations you make around you are correct, but I would say even more correct is this what I've coined arrival before departure. Somehow being there before you're there in order to get there. In other words, the mind, the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fiction. If you are powerful enough to be there before you're there, a self-induced delusion that says, oh, I've done that, just not yet. But the just not yet is just, it's kind of a given because you know reality from fiction, and yet they're one and the same in your mind in the world of accomplishment. You said something, and I'm actually in prep for this. You gave me the name of somebody you've been reading a little bit, and I literally printed his 25 biggest quotes. This is Neville Goddard, and the first one. I'm just going to read it out loud because I just went, oh, wow, okay. You are already that which you want to be. And your refusal to believe this is the only reason you don't see it. All transformations begin with an intense, burning desire to be transformed. The first step in the renewing of the mind is desire. You must want to be different and intend to be before you can begin to change yourself. Here's the next point. Then you must make your future dream a present fact. That's just what. How do you do that?
That's the $1 million question, right? Yeah. You know how like you can remember the past and say, all right, this happened, and you have a very clear memory of it. Mm-hmm. Well, right now we're living a memory of a past dream. And so if you can remember your past, is it possible that you can remember your future? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? By giving more weight to the imagination versus the current reality based on our senses, and believing more into that imagination and that brighter future, then you pull it forward through belief, through obsession, and then through pulling that feeling forward of having it, whatever it is you're looking to acquire. It's complex.
It's very complex.
So look at children. They're like little mini manifestors. They didn't have the ability to dream knocked out of them yet. And then we go into traditional school and they want you to be realistic and be bought into their ways of thinking. Yet, I think it's biblical. It says like the pathway to heaven is to be childlike, right? And so if we can remember who we are, then we can create anything. It all starts here.
Another biblical is that without vision, the people perished. And I think on that Ruskin quote, dream lofty dreams, and as ye dream, so shall ye become. Your vision is the promise of what shall at last unveil itself. It's the same idea of manifesting a reality so that it's happened. It's different than, oh, here's a picture of on a refrigerator. Oh, I want that house or that car, this vision board. It's very different than that. It's not just a visual saying, oh, I'd like that cabin on the lake. It's last weekend I went to the cabin on the lake. I chopped the wood. I made the fire. I caught a mouse. I was there in every way.
Yeah.
Except I wasn't. When you can make it that real, the belief, was it real or was it not? And quite honestly, I've some of the greatest, most successful people I've ever met, they will start a sentence saying, I think this happened in real life and on earth, not just in my mind, but I may be wrong. They literally, as time goes by, they're not sure if they did it or they just thought it so powerfully. They're one and the same.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the only way I can reverse engineer it is I can just look at things I wanted to create, not knowing how to get there, but I arrived there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, some people might call it luck. Some people might call it fate, destiny, or it could just be a manufactured coincidence. Mm-hmm. For example, like I wanted to be a pilot and I wanted an airplane. I remember one of my mentors, Jesse Elder, and he's kind of one that turned me on to Neville's work. And I was like, okay, I want an airplane and I need to get my pilot's license. And so I got this vision board of this airplane and I put it on my screensaver and I'm going to carry the feeling forward and all that stuff. And he was like, that's great. Why don't you try this on? I said, okay. He says, why don't you just go drive by the airport and be around that plane? And then just go sit in it. And then eventually you're going to end up cleaning them or owning one. Because you bring yourself into it, you immerse yourself, you know, your senses. So then your unconscious mind, which is 30,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind, it becomes its current reality. And then all of a sudden the breadcrumbs start showing up and the opportunities. And then you can measure backwards once you're there. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to like figure out how to formulate this and make it work. So if I look at different things in my life, like rivers, the riverfront, I wanted to have all the lots on the Columbia River. That was 2 years ago. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I just knew I wanted lots on the river. And then all of a sudden, I went and looked at a riverfront property, and I called the agent. I said, you know, we're looking to buy other lots. You know, what's out there? And he says, oh, we have a development coming up on the river. And so we'll have the listing broker call me, and we'll go check it out. And from there, I ended up getting all those lots, ended up with a couple more on the river, and I never had a plan. Mm-hmm. But it happened.
You just wanted it.
Yeah. And I could tell you, like, the biggest one in my life was when I met my wife. I was in Mexico, and I was 20 years old. We're down there for my brother's 18th birthday, but it's the same time that the seniors go down there on their senior trip. And we're in this club called El Cid in Mazatlan. And there's these girls that are dancing, you know, down on the dance floor. And she comes up to me. She says, why aren't you dancing? I said, I don't dance, right? And I kind of was too chicken shit to dance with her, right? And so then she went away. I'm like, idiot. So I went and pounded a bunch of shots of whiskey and liquid courage. And she came out later, drugged me on the dance floor, and we danced. And it was different. There's different themes, right? So that night was like foam bubble night. So the club fills up with foam bubbles. And so, you know, I'm pretty tuned up out there dancing, and you don't know who you're dancing with. And I feel these arms come around me, and I turn around, and it's her. And we're dancing, and we hit it off that night really well. And then it's time for her to leave, and she's with her friends. And I said, okay, well, let's meet out here tomorrow underneath the bridge at 12 o'clock. And so she agreed. And so I showed up there at about 11 o'clock with my brother in the morning. And I waited there till 1. And my brother, the heat's just beating down on us. I'm hungover, miserable. My brother's like, you got stood up, let's go. And this girl ruined my trip at the time. Because I was there for probably 5-6 more days, and every short-haired blonde girl I saw, I'd ask my brother, I'm like, is that her? And he's like, no, get over her, you idiot, you know? And I knew 3 things about her, because it was really loud in the club. I knew her name, I thought, was Lori. I knew she graduated in 2000. And I knew she was from Mount Lake Terrace. I lived in Marysville. Mount Lake Terrace is about 30 miles south of Marysville. And so I remember flying out of Mazatlan and looking over the tip of the wing of the airplane, the sunset, and some like in a movie, and just knowing she's down there. This girl that I fell in love with one night in a bar. And I remember just praying. I'm like, God, let me find this woman again. And I got home and I just couldn't stop thinking about her. And so about 2 or 3 weeks later, this is July now, I wake up on a Saturday pretty early in the morning. And my mom's asked me, she says, why are you up so early? Because I was 20. And usually I'd be hungover, asleep on a Saturday. I said, I'm going to go find that girl in Mexico that I met. And I felt it in my stomach. And so this is before cell phones. This is before social media, right? And I just headed south. And I thought, okay, Mount Lake Terrace, maybe there's a lake. This is summertime, girls go to lakes. And there's no lake in Mount Lake Terrace, right? There's no beach. And then my other strategy was, okay, maybe I'll go to like an espresso stand and there'll be a girl that'll know a girl named Lori that graduated from Mount Lake Terrace in 2000. Didn't do that. And I went down to the Edmonds waterfront by the ferry, and I'm just sitting there throwing rocks in the Puget Sound, and I was going to give up. I was like, this is stupid. So on my way home, I stopped by the mall, and I bought a t-shirt at Pacific Sunwear, and then I went to Sam Goody to buy a CD. I don't know if you remember what CDs are. I do. And I got the Armageddon soundtrack in my hand. I'm looking at it, and I look up, and she walks right in. And she's like, Jack? And I'm like, no, my name is Jeff. And then I said, Lori? She says, no, my name is Rory. And I said, well, what happened? You stood me up. We were supposed to meet that day. And I didn't tell her, I'm looking for you right now, because that would have been a little weird. And she's like, no, we drove by. We didn't see you. And I said, oh, okay, well, give me your number. We'll hang out sometime. And I got her number. I went home and I told Mom I found her. And she's like, no way.
Your mom's freaking out.
She's like, no way.
Right.
And then we've been together ever since, 3 kids, been together for, 23 years. And people would call that fate, destiny, luck. Yet I was plugged in. And through instinct, through trusting my gut feeling, and seeing it happened. Now, how do you reverse engineer stuff like that? We can create that, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what interests me. It's like, how do you create more of that?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Miracles.
Yeah, because that takes it out of the coincidence luck category if you can replicate that consistently, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fun stuff for me.
Right.
And we do it all the time unconsciously. We're just not aware of it. Mm-hmm. We're just so used to it.
Right.
We're like, oh yeah, I got this thing. This, and maybe not that profound consistently, but throughout life, we get the outcome we're looking for, the lesson we need, or the outcome we deserve. Yeah, my intention is like, how do you keep creating that way? Using magic, God powers. Mm-hmm. Quantum physics.
There is a quote, a Rumi quote, what you are seeking is seeking you. So it's almost an understanding that your seeking is part of the equation. Certainly. It's not that we're just passively hoping the right things knock us over, but this idea that it's trying to find the same home. That somehow we have the ability to engage some sort of energy that draws, the law of attraction, this concept that every one of the real great thinkers, they've taken a stab at it. Mm-hmm. I had a chapter, Jeff, where I was obsessed with this concept to really just try to understand it. And I think that it starts, what I'm sure of is that it starts with process number one is that I absolutely know what I want and what I'm looking for. It starts there. That's in the equation of reverse engineering. I would say that has to be step one. Mm-hmm. And it's called out here is that you have to desire this outcome.
Yeah.
But then then the magic kicks in. Like, okay, so how does that engage? And I think that maybe what engages are sort of instincts, thoughts. You're hypersensitive to any clue that might lead you there. Whereas otherwise they'd just walk right by you. Waldo, I guess in my vernacular, Waldo is there. It's not that he's not there waiting for the connection. Whatever it is, we're just not tuned into the right frequency to see it. But when you are tuned into that right frequency, you're not on your own path. You're doing and going in ways that you normally wouldn't, for what reason you're not even sure sometimes. But there it is. I'm going to give you one back. This will manifest and complete today at 3:00.
Yeah.
Okay. On my board up there for, I don't know, let's say, what are we, 6 months into this year, is, this sounds simple enough because you can get on a computer and find these. Mm-hmm. But it really isn't that simple. This is an LX 570, a very specific color and a very specific interior. Now it's a thing, so you can search by all this, and yeah, there might be one in Florida or this or that, and I'm like, shipping and this and that. But I'm just going to trust that this is going to happen, but I'm on the hunt at the same time. And so I had a serendipitous gathering with two guys that came to the hangar last week that just wanted to talk business, and we're sitting upstairs, and the one guy says, "Yeah, I just ordered a new Range Rover." And for all these reasons, that's what he wanted. And so it's coming in like July 1st. It's arriving. And so I said, so that's great. Anyway, sounds exciting. We walk out of here, and what's sitting there that he walks to is an LX 570, the right color. Okay, you see the color everywhere. The interior is the key. There's not many of them like this. And I said, "So you've got an LX 570. I don't know if you saw on the board up there, but I've got my eye out for one, but it's got to have a specific color. Interior. That's what I'm looking for." And he goes, "Well, what interior?" I literally walked to his car, and he opens the door, and I go, "No way."
Yeah.
Every option I would have ordered, and he's the one owner, and he's kept it impeccably. And I didn't want a new one. I wanted a used one because I don't want to pay the huge price of driving a new one off. And there it was. And he has to sell it by today. Well, that was a less than 30-second conversation. I looked at it and said, "How much do you want for it?" He said, and I said, "Okay."
Right.
And
yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I say crazy, but then again, I go, no, I don't think it's crazy at all. Yeah. But it was a stated, focused desire that says, this is going to happen. And why? People go, why? Oh, it's the tailgate. That's why. They're the only SUV that has a tailgate. And I like tailgates. So there you go.
That's so great.
Yeah.
I love it. It's fascinating, and it's just so fun to dance with it and figure out how to build that muscle.
Right.
'Cause no one teaches us this stuff.
Yeah.
They knock it out of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you apply this, and you've talked about various chapters and places in your life, and of course you're an accomplished businessman and real estate entrepreneur, but hey, here it applied to your wife, right? This focused endeavor, flying, and the things that you do. This topic, I'm certain, the mind and the power of the mind is the secret sauce. And yet, what a study.
Yeah.
what a lifetime study to try to understand and really unlock that whole thing. I remember, Jeff, in college thinking on back to scripture that if you had faith, you could say to that mountain, up and move, and it would move. And you go, well, in the world of miracles, there are a lot of other miracles talked about in the Bible. Is this like a literal or is this just a metaphor? I'm not so sure. But I remember it fascinated me that does our mind have that ability to change reality or to bring about a reality that wouldn't have happened that way were it not for our mental intention.
Yeah. I like that. There's a theory that we might be living in a highly pixelated simulation. And so you can imagine if you're playing a video game like, let's just say, Grand Theft Auto, right? And sometimes in the computer game, we're the avatar. We're the player in the game. But we're also the controller of the player in the game. But even further forward, we could be the programmer of the game, of the controller in the game. Like if you step back. And so when you just try that on and dance with it and realize that you have that ability with the most powerful supercomputer known to man in between your ears to create anything you want, what kind of programs can you add into that software to upgrade it? And what's possible? And why not dance with it? Why not imagine? Why not make believe? Because thoughts become things. Everything's a consequence of thoughts. Someone had to think about this airplane. You had to think about Power Players. Here it is. You interjected a thought into our brain trust about garage condos. Look what happened. We didn't have a plan, but it's a thought. And I just love, I feel like I'm just obsessed with going deeper down that rabbit hole because it's further upstream than any kind of Newtonian physics. It's quantum physics. Like power versus force. You're talking about vibration. So Newtonian physics is force, like struggle. I have to do X in order to get Y.
Action, reaction.
Yeah. Quantum physics is power. And that comes from elevating your vibration and your frequencies. In that book, they have like a scale, power versus force, and the emotions that are attached to it. And most people, we operate like level 2 or 300, and that's shame, guilt, sadness, anger, frustration. And if you can elevate your emotions and get up to, level 500, then you can manipulate reality with your thoughts. And then if you can get up, 600 and 700, like Jesus or Buddha or some of those people, you can change the world. And that's an emotional state of oneness and bliss and connection and God and the elevated frequency where you just have a massive impact. Imagine having that kind of elevated level of frequency where it's just like you can just think things into existence, which we already do a little bit, but I think we're always looking for the right way to do things. What's the right formula? What's the right recipe? What's the action plan? And maybe we just need to do the actions that are actually useful. We got to go back to thinking first and believing and upgrading the program of the software between our ears.
Would you equate that scale of frequency the ascension of that scale of frequency to is it simple awareness of the tools that you have to work with? Is it a self-awareness sort of ascension where you just recognize more and more how capable you are within this supercomputer that we're given?
Yeah, I think it's, from my experience, it's pretty elusive. It's a deep rabbit hole to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of things that play into it, like our foods we're eating are poisonous, they're toxic, so that dumbs us down. Our pineal glands are calcified by the fluoride in the water and all the, pesticides and crap that's in us. Our emotions are consistently under attack by propaganda from the powers that should not be. Like, there's a lot of things that are interjected into our environment to keep us dumbed down, so we are good little minions and cogs in the wheel of the machine. And so there's a lot. I mean, it's your fitness, your health, your body, your mind, body, spirits. There's just so much. So it's like a recipe.
I had a discussion last week, and this isn't the first time. It's really sort of, when a thought is being presented to you almost as you need to take some notes, the same topic comes to you in all sorts of fashions. And the topic, as awkward as it sounds to sort of like, conservative Eagle Scout, the topic was on hallucinogenics, on mushrooms, on the great lyrics of the writers of the 60s and 70s. How did they come up with this? Well, they were they were transformed mentally to open a mind space that isn't naturally done, is what it seems like. Matter of fact, many have laid it out just that way, that these lyrics came from a place that I had to sort of choose to get into.
Yeah.
But these glimpses of mind space that come when we sort of alter the normal. Give me your thoughts on that topic, because it seems to be, I don't know if it's just people trying to deal with the tension and stress and unknowns of life, or if they're truly seeking a higher mind space. But it seems very, very prevalent everywhere I turn. It seems like this conversation is happening in one form or another. Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, LSD was brought into the States by the CIA, and they were using it to test it to see how they can get a competitive advantage on the enemy. And then when they started giving it to, the military got a hold of it, and then they started to realize that once the troops started taking LSD, that they couldn't control them anymore because it freed their mind. And then the people that they were experimenting on with the LSD became free, and then it started to proliferate, and all this amazing creativity came from it. Mushrooms are intelligence. It's a psychedelic. It opens up the mind, and it unlocks. It unlocks you. And I've went deep down that path. You name it, I've done it. Whether it's plant medicine in the jungles of Costa Rica, or 5-MeO-DMT, the God molecule. And to answer your question, it's therapeutic. I've watched it help people that have real trauma, PTSD, drug addicts, abuse, healed like that. Where therapy couldn't do it. It's 20 years of therapy in 10 minutes. Ayahuasca takes a little bit longer. That's, 6 hours of, it's not fun, hard work. It's hard work. But it opens you up. And the reason I went down that path primarily is because I want to know. I want to know why we're here. I want to know where we come from. I want that enlightenment, And I think there's power in them. And it's an upgrade for sure.
They say that the quality that is most prevalent in a true entrepreneur is the quality of curiosity. That they're not satisfied with just not really knowing.
Yeah.
They got to know. They got to find an answer, a real answer, an answer that satisfies.
Yeah.
And if they don't get one, they keep looking till they figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think this falls in that category that it's not enough to say, you can look at certain people and say, well, I can understand how you can jump and stuff a basketball. You're 6'8", you're in unbelievable shape. It all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But when you see those who don't have any apparent gifts beyond what you feel you have yourself, and yet they're running circles around you in all areas of life,
yeah,
then the questions start flying. Like, how the hell is it the early childhood hard drive? Is it culture? Is it environment that you were raised in? What is it? But then when you look at a lot of people and you go, well, they didn't have a great childhood. They didn't this, they didn't that. They weren't raised by brain surgeons.
Yeah.
And yet here they are. They've discovered something. They've gotten onto something that is now infiltrating every area of their life. And to me, that curiosity is what leads this discovery. You said, I just needed to know what I want answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The work never stops though.
Never
and
stops.
I guess the deeper I go, the more I realize is no one knows what the hell's going on, including me, no one really knows. And even the people that seem like they got their shit together, maybe this season they do. There's ups and downs, right?
Sure.
And I saw this quote today, and it's just fascinating. It said, I hope you are winning the battles that you haven't told anybody about, that you're fighting.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, that was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you'll see people, especially with social media, it's just, it's an environment where people share their wins. And a lot of them are suffering, but they're pretending like they got it all together.
Yep. Everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. I'm not sure who said that, but I know where I first heard it was from one of my kids that brought it home from his school teacher, who's a Navy SEAL. And Brian Rafus is who told my kid, and I'm quoting Brian Rafus, but it's on my board up there. Boy, have I thought about that. And you're so right. There's no one exempt from that. And why is it though that in now we're taking a left turn, but the is it a need? Is it a need? Is it inherent that we just want to, cut and paste and Photoshop to look a certain way to the world? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is on that one. I've taken social media and took it off of the front of my phone, so it's harder for me to access. Because it's also, I notice it's consumed a lot of my mental bandwidth and my time.
Where does it have a place in your business?
Marketing. Yeah.
You do some interesting and very, again, everything you do is original. It's different, but there's some real point blank messaging regarding I want to buy your home, but I do it in a different way.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Well, some people just want their home purchased from them. Most people have to sell a home in order to buy another home. Mm-hmm. And so some people like the easy path where we can just buy their house and they don't have to worry about selling it. And then they can go buy their next home. Mm-hmm. And then, if the price doesn't work out, then we just list it and sell it. And they're like, how are we going to get here? And I'm like, don't worry, it'll be fine. And it always works out. Mm-hmm. They want the plan, of course. Mm-hmm. There is no plan. It's just, let's go. Figure out where you want. We'll get there.
But you'll buy their house and let them stay there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
While they're with their money going and finding their next one.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's one solution. There's multiple solutions.
Right.
It's just, how are you different? Mm-hmm. How do you stand out from everybody else?
Well, and part of that, I believe, is just pure knowledge of the toolbox, knowledge of deal structuring, knowledgeable around all of the various ways that solutions can be found. Mm-hmm. You've not only invested in your personal growth, but your business acumen didn't just fall out of a tree on you either. I certainly have had the privilege of having you at Power Players and your partners, and so I think that knowing what can be done and how deals can be structured to accommodate that sets you apart of the marketplace as well, of all these people that want to buy real estate.
Yeah. I think most people have a one-dimensional approach to what they do. And if you have a lot of different tools in your tool belt, then you can just see different ways to solve people's problems of whatever it is they want. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jeff, if you were, this is way out there, but it dips into sociology, it dips into politics, it dips into sort of a belief system around what makes things work. If you all of a sudden were like the founder of this island, this country, let's call it, what would be the rules of operation? Philosophically, how would this thing operate? What would you require of people that wanted to move onto the island and say, hey, I want to be a part of this country?
Good question. Are you talking like a country or a business? I mean, I guess I can just share with you like people that I allow into my idea of a country or orbit.
Yes, that's the idea.
I prefer they share my values, right? And my values are really like big on freedom, not being a victim. The 10 Commandments are a good rules to follow, honest people, caring about people. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
I don't know if you've ever heard of this author. He's actually a PhD chemist, but he's also a theologian. Winky Pratney. Have you ever heard that name?
No.
Yeah, once you've heard it, you'll never forget that name, right? He says, in all things, agree on the essentials. Have freedom on the non-essentials. Have love over all.
Yeah.
So what you just named are some essentials for you in the way you see the world. And it applies to how you conduct yourself. I mean, out there. It's straightforward, honest. No, there's nothing hidden behind the curtain. Here it is,
Yeah.
It's refreshing in this day and age where you never really know what you've got initially until you really dig in. You get a sense very early on that you're just who you are. And you're going to say, here's who I am. This is what I'm all about. There it is. There's not a lot of wondering.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And outside of my orbit, I get along with pretty much everybody, because we're all one. We're all connected. And the people I actually enjoy the most are the ones that are rough around the edges, because they have a story and they'll tell you the truth, and they're just they're authentic, and they need the help. They need the help. And I just love it. Like selling houses, there was a time where I'd 7th level my business, and we're selling, dang near 300 homes a year, and I was out of production and being an operator, or an owner instead of an operator. And then I was coaching my agents, and they're all wound piss tight, and sometimes that's challenging. I love simplicity. And I love meeting people now. I mean, I have 6 appointments today. I stacked them all up on the back end of our trip, and went on one this morning, met this awesome Polish lady and her little baby that's just like 2 years old, and just cute little baby. And they got a challenge. They have a home they need to sell in Everett, and they're upside down on it. We'll figure it out. And I got, another house to look at today that's rougher. Another one's kind of rough. Another one that's a little rough. Another one's a little, 2 more that are rough.
It's a rough day.
But all the people, it's just so fun. Like you meet them, and it's like a treasure hunt. Because I think what's different, what I found is, I used to wear a suit and tie, and I'd rip that thing off when I get home, and I'd have a PowerPoint presentation where I'd sit down with people at their table. We'd look at comps, and we would go through the presentation, and then I'd try and close them for the deal, and it just felt weird. It felt slimy. That's how I was trained. And then using neuro-linguistic programming to get one over on them and get them to say yes, and using these closing techniques, all this stuff we're trained. And I just threw that out the window, and I just connect with people.
Yeah.
And I show up my ball cap and jeans, and I love it, because there's no sales. If we get along together, we work together. And we will get along together. And if I can't help them, which is very rare, I'll find them someone that can. Right. But I'm not like attached to the sale, where a lot of people, especially now, it's a tough market. If they don't make that sale, they don't make their mortgage payment, and you can just smell that commission breath. And no one wants to be sold. No one wants to be sold. So if you just go there to help them, they feel at peace, and it's effortless. It's friction-free. It's fun. So I'm going to go meet, 6 or 7 more people today that I've never met. One of them I have before. I've sold them a few houses, and it's just going to be adventure.
I think you have to love adventure, though. You have to love walking into new situations. And yet my observation of people, in large part, is that predictability, sameness is almost the goal. Like this is how it all goes.
Yeah.
And the unknown, I'm leaving for a week and I'm walking out the door. I'm not bringing anything. I'm not really even sure where I'm going. That's very uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
And yet the irony, at least in my view of life, is that that's where life begins. Sure, I'm all about structure and a base that you can build from. But it's that if we want to call it comfort zone, that's a place to sort of come back and do your laundry. It's not a place to live. It's, matter of fact, it's a place to get in, get out, and off to the next adventure. How many times have you taken off in your tail dragger? And I'm not saying there isn't a lot of thinking with flying, but we're not really positive where you're going to land. Right? You've got options. You've thought it out, but you're going to have to play it by ear. You're going to have to see how it goes.
Yeah.
These meetings that you're having today, there's no script. You're in tune with your audience, your surroundings, and then you're gonna say, what about this? Tell me about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Being an entrepreneur is it's a contact sport for sure. And I don't by all means have it figured out. I'm still learning and dealing with the ups and the downs, and yet it's fun. Like, being outside your comfort zone actually is a place of uncertainty, which is one of the 6 basic human needs. But when you live in that uncertainty, then you actually get certainty. Right?
No, that's a soundbite.
Isn't that weird?
It's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's times where you're like, this is what happens in your entrepreneurs. You're like, oh shit, how am I going to make it? And then all of a sudden you reap your harvest. You're like, and then what I do naturally is go redeploy that capital. And then I'm like, oh no.
Right. So, I was green for about 5 minutes.
And so it's just, I think, and what I can appreciate about that is I can watch my thoughts travel, or the thoughts travel, and then I can watch them go down disempowering places. Like lately, I just listen to the voices in my head and I'll watch them. I know they're not mine, and then it'll go here to here to here to here, and then I could catch it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this true? Right. Okay, it's not true.
Right.
Is it useful? It's not useful. Mm-hmm. Okay, what could be a different thought? Okay, this. What am I going to do about that disempowering thought? Get rid of it.
Right.
Most people don't have that awareness. They think that conversation in their head is them.
And not only not the awareness, but you've set it up where almost subconsciously you're catching, redirecting, and throwing out what you don't want, almost without thinking about it. You're so aware of it that it's like hitting a tripwire. Oh, here's what we do when that happens. Boom, 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 boom. Done.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll go.
Yeah.
I mean, I have conversations with people in my head for 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. And I'll catch it. But what I found, back to social media, is the algorithm in social media feeds you disempowering information. Mm-hmm. If you look at like the algorithm in social media that's fed to a female versus a male, they're completely different. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned lately is when I go to bed doom scrolling on social media, I believe the enemy, call him Satan, is somehow involved in disempowering humans by feeding them information that's going to cause them to get wound up. You're programming that into your brain, and then you go to sleep, and now that's programmed into your unconscious mind, and then you wake up in the morning pissed off. Mm-hmm. That was happening to me.
Or disabled in some way, right?
Yeah.
Right. You've looked at this photoshopped world, and you've compared yourself even subconsciously. You recognize, boy, I'm not all of that in a bag of chips. I mean, shit, how do I look like that? How do I act like that? I'm not in Mexico having a party right now. Yeah. And this is that whittling away, the comparison when the actual enlightenment is compare yourself to no one other than what God created. A one of one.
Yeah.
That's it. You. Are you your best self? Are you living the real you, not being influenced by the anti-you?
Yeah.
Just that awareness that there's a battle going on is a big deal. But there is a battle going on for your mind. No question.
Yeah. And the enemy's very tough, very smart, very elusive, and it's effective. And so having that awareness, and it's like you're asking me, why do I swim or run? Well, because I gotta get my mind straight, and I have to work the body to calm the mind. Like I don't have it figured out. I work hard on it.
Right.
I'm just aware of it. And then if I get a little wound tight, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Why am I wound up? Oh, I had some carbs. And these type of carbs, the processed food, actually causes depression. Right? Or disempowering thoughts. Or if I'm not working out, then I'm just kind of down in the dumps. Or alcohol's a big one. Like I stopped drinking. And when I do, though, it's a toxin. And I'm not on my high horse here. I mean, I like to have a beer every now and then, but I'm trading today for tomorrow, or tomorrow for today. Mm-hmm. And then the next day I wake up, my mood's down, I have anxiety. And I'm like, what is going on? Oh, I had alcohol yesterday. This is what it feels like. And I just know, okay, I got to just get through today, and then tomorrow it'll be fine. But just having that awareness of what's triggering these thoughts. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it serving me or is it not? And obviously we'll naturally atrophy and fall back. But as long as you can just win every single day, you can chunk it.
Yeah.
It's like running an ultra marathon or an Ironman. An Ironman's long distance. It's 2 miles swim, 112-mile bike, and then a marathon for a cool down. That's a long day.
For a cool down. Right.
And so then you get to a point where you got to chunk it. Like, you're trying to finish this marathon after all that, and you just got to, like, I'll pick out telephone poles or trees, and I'm like, I just need to get to that tree. Mm-hmm. And then I'll get there. And I'll pick my next checkpoint. I got to get there. And so it's the same thing with days, with life. My father right now, he's in the hospital, and he'll get through it, but it's just like, okay, he's just got to win every day, win every hour, and then every day, and just chunk it.
I'm sorry to hear about your dad, but I'm hearing the point you're making. We tend to sometimes, look so far out that even that thought is disabling. It just seems so impossible. So 10 feet.
Yeah.
The next hour.
Yeah.
The next, yeah.
I was thinking about that on the way here. I'm like, how do you get through challenges? Like big ones? And that's probably what I can look at as training, whether it's running distance. I've attempted a few 100-milers. The farthest Chris and I made it was 72 miles in like 22 hours. We'll get 100 eventually. But there's a point where you just got to chunk it down. It's like, just got to get there. Mm-hmm. And so I think whether it's business, life, whatever it is, if you can just win each day, that's all that matters. Like I went from 194 pounds down to 173, and I did that in 3 weeks. I did that doing this cleanse and then getting lean, and then from there we transitioned into a fat burning nutritional program where I'm counting my macros and eating a certain amount of calories every day. But the other day I fell off, and I had some food that was not good food choices. I went off the rails. But guess what? The next day I reset.
Right. Yeah.
And the next day.
Well, and that's a realistic plan. The idea of like, I'm starting today, I'm going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't work that way.
No, we're humans.
It's if you can just kind of keep cycling upward, right?
Yeah.
Now, tell me about this. Well, I suppose to set the stage, I have the privilege of working with you and Chris and Jason, and you've got a big closing coming up here. A really nice sized project. I'd love for people to get in the mind of how your real estate brain's thinking. We talk a little bit of houses and lots of meetings there, but you've got some stuff going on that's much bigger than single family homes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mind giving a pregame show to this project coming up?
Yeah, we got 240 garage condos going on in Eastern Washington, Lake Chelan. And
talk about a garage condo. Some people have never even heard of that.
Well, you're the one that taught us about it.
Well, I do know that.
You planted that seed.
I do know that, yeah.
I mean, back to like the beginning of this conversation, you punched it into Chris's head. Chris went and found the lots, and then here we are now.
Here we are, yep.
Right?
Yeah, I remember that conversation, but that conversation wouldn't have happened if the team that you have wasn't extremely capable and qualified, because this is not your starter project. 242 of anything structurally, it's not. But the team of of the three of you really forms a three-legged stool that has a lot of talent and a lot of experience. And now this is simply product type and demand. But garage condos, talk to me a little bit about them, especially in Chelan.
So they're going to be 16 by 40, some are 20 by 50, different sizes, where people will be able to bring their boats over there and store them, or their RVs, or whatever they may be. So they don't have to tow them over the mountains, their $200,000 wake setter or whatever, and have it get beat up by the highways. So we expect we've done a lot of research, and they seem to be pretty desired. So we're going to rip through 240 of them, and it should be a very, very lucrative project.
Yeah. Well, this is in the scale of real estate. You're well along the line of competence when you start doing projects like that. Your development skills, your construction skills, your brokerage skills, your finance skills. It's just a privilege to watch the hard work of competence start doing things that really are rewarded and serve the community. I mean, it's awesome. So what do you think? Give me the craziest thought you've ever had on where real estate's going. Give me some enlightened thoughts of things that you're kicking around in your real estate head. Because one thing leads to another. A lap around the track leads to kind of an upgrade.
I think based on this conversation, it could be anything we want.
Yeah.
There's no end. It's whatever we think about. And as you're kind of sharing this with me, I'm going full circle to the beginning of our conversation. I'm like, how did this all happen? Well, you told Chris about the garages, and then we found them. Okay, now let's go back further. I came here for a day at the hangar, and then I invested in Power Players and talked to you, and I knew if I invested in those guys to get them there, then something great would happen. And then we go back further, then you thought about Power Players, and it showed up, and it's just like, is it the chicken or the egg, right? So these seeds were planted,
right? And
it's the co-creation of the thought mind, the thought power of the group of the minds that created this. And it's just fascinating to say, how did this happen? Like, I can really say it's your fault. But then you can say it's your mentor's fault.
I was going to say, then I could say it's AB's fault. And,
it's fascinating if you really think about
this
that.
This idea of, I hear people say, oh, yeah, I'm a self-made.
Yeah, bullshit.
Oh, God, how arrogant. You're just unaware is all you are. That's such bullshit. It's self-made.
Yeah.
We're a product of voices and influences. Talk to me about, Jeff, the disciplines, swimming being one. That's mind and body. Talk to me about the disciplines of what makes a great mind, what makes a great vessel to go through this world. Your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul. What are the disciplines around those topics that you employ on a regular basis?
I think if someone else has been able to do it, I can do it. Like, if that person did it, I can do it. And then from there, sometimes I figure out how they did it, but I try be careful not to get too into the weeds on the how, because then I'll get paralyzed. I think it goes back to thinking bigger. Because, like running 100-miler is an example. We set that goal. I'm just remembering my future when we crossed that finish line. But it pulled us through marathons. It pulled us through 50-milers. They seemed insignificant and just checkpoints along the way. When you get to 50, Like, this is only the halfway part, you know?
Right.
Business, anything. I think what happens is we think small collectively as humans, and then we may fall short of small, and it's not that big of a deal. So if you think massive, like let's just say 10 million, or 100 million, let's just say $100 million, right? Well, then if you fall short and hit 50 million, are you going to be upset?
Right.
Versus like $1 million and you fall short and hit like 500 grand or something,
right.
Or 100,000 and fall short and hit 50 or whatever, depending on the time frame, right? And so it's like thinking bigger is probably a master strategy, and then compression of time, because we have this idea that time's linear and it's going to take forever to get somewhere. And maybe using a benchmark of how other people measure things can be disempowering. Even I get my blood work done 3 times a year, and they have these averages of where you should be. But I'm wondering, are those averages the average man? Because I'm not average. So am I trying to hit these numbers of the average human, right?
Right.
Or business or whatever it may be. So
right.
I think
that's the comparison syndrome. Like, how am I doing as it relates to others versus how am I doing as it relates to my capability, what I'm capable of? That's a different conversation.
Yeah, and so I think chasing the outliers or getting inspired by the outliers that are playing bigger, if you want to, will pull you farther than what others do. And then in their zone of genius. Because you can follow someone that's hyper successful, but maybe they're 100 pounds overweight. They're not qualified to teach you about fitness.
No.
They're qualified to teach you about money.
Right.
And so you can almost put together this recipe.
Bandwidth of genius. I like that.
Yeah, you can put together this recipe of like my pastor up in Burlington, Ken Hubbard. He has Radius Church, amazing guy. And his children, when they were going through high school and still now, on Friday nights, would be spending time with him because they were his best friends instead of out with their friends partying and getting in trouble. Like, he's qualified to teach me how to raise children or have a family, right? It's just so I look at people and I'm like, okay, where's the gold? And what can I learn from them? And then what can I take and punch into this superhuman avatar that I'm creating?
Right. Something you said that I want to make perfectly clear that people recognize this as being intentional, because you say it very casually. You're talking about several things, but you use the phrase that this is pulling us through. Okay. Well, if you think about that, and I know you do, that the difference between being pulled towards something in front of you, in other words, whatever it is pulling you because you recognize it and you're connected to it by being pulled forward toward it, versus the opposite is being pushed towards something, like forced towards something to keep moving forward. It's not just a play on words, the idea of being pulled versus being pushed. And to me, it's the real you of passion and love and possibility is being pulled. I'm being pulled towards where I've already been. I'm being pulled towards the arrival before departure. I'm there before I'm there in order to get there. I'm being pulled towards it. Versus a fear motivation is, come on, do this. You can do it. Come on, grind. And you just get tired of being whiplashed. At a certain point, you just go, just cut it out. Quit pushing. I'll go when I want to go. And there's a whole different energy around. You want to be pulled.
Yeah.
Passion pulls.
Yeah.
Fear pushes.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference in how you operate your way through the world that way.
Yeah, this conversation is just, I'm feeling more like enlightened. It's almost therapeutic, I can't wait to rewatch it. There's this concept called time piercing. Jesse Elder crowned it, and I love that guy. He's a brilliant mind. You should follow. And he talks about how you can get into a meditative state. There's like alternate versions of you, billions of versions of you, right? And you can get into this meditative state and go meet that future version of yourself that has accomplished whatever it is you want to accomplish, whether it's the relationship, the business, the fitness, the spiritual connection. Those are kind of the four main things in life, right? Faith, family, fitness, and finance. And those buckets encompass a lot of things inside. But you can go meet that person 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and have a conversation with them, that future version of you. And they're going to be excited to have that conversation. And you can go up and high five them and hug them and then get wisdom. And they're going to talk to you and they're going to share with you how to get there, how you got there quicker. I mean, you can just pull so much wisdom from that. And who's to say it's not real? When you put more weight into the imagination versus where we're currently at, that becomes your reality. So you're just meeting that future version of yourself. And then you can collapse time and have the time machine to get where you want to go quicker and be pulled there.
I like the embrace and the feeling of that meeting, of meeting that you, which the antithesis of that is a saying I'm sure you've heard, that hell is you meeting the person you could have been.
Yes.
and in other words, it's all said and done, but now you get a glimpse of what you could have been, but you didn't. You didn't do it. You didn't see it. You didn't move in that direction. So I love the pulling of an introduction of your best capability, of what you're truly capable of. What is that? And how do we ever find that? This comes back to that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Being comfortable, being uncomfortable is a choice, I believe.
Yeah. And one other thing that I to add on to that is, I think leveraging this idea of death, right? Like if there is an actual death, when we have loved ones pass, it gives us permission to be more bold. Like Lee was a good buddy of ours, right? Right. He was very philosophical. And one of my mentors. I love that guy. But when your time here is short and whatever you're afraid of is insignificant in the face of death. Like you're not going to be looking on your deathbed and be like, man, I wish I wouldn't have had that conversation, or I wish I wouldn't have, said this to that person. But like, you got to be bold and go for it. Just know that you only get one shot here. So chase that dream, go all in, fail greatly, and win big, and just go for it.
You're making me think, Jeff, of I had two grandmothers, no grandfathers, but two grandmothers that were very sick at very young ages. And they were in care facilities like in their 50s. And they were falling apart. They self-induced. They wrecked themselves. But I would go visit them, truth be told, in part probably just out of obligation. They were my grandmothers. But being ever the efficient one, it seemed like every time I would go to visit them, somebody was working on them, giving their meds, doing something, and I had to wait a lot.
Yeah.
And I hate waiting. I really hate waiting. And so I thought, well, okay, how do you do this? And because you can't make an appointment. So I decided I would go to the lunchroom, the sitting room, the whatever you want to call it in these nursing homes. And I was just going to make the best of the time. And I would grab a chair and I'd spin it around and I'd walk up to some Q-tip sitting there in their wheelchair or they're sitting there, and I'd plop right in front of them, just 2 feet away. And I'd say, my name's Greg. How are you? Oh, I say, hey, listen, Ron, can we establish that you're rounding third base right now? You're heading for home. Is that a true statement? And I'd always start then. They go, oh, boy, that's true. Yeah, I'm about a foot away from home plate. And I go, okay, good. Then I want to have a straightforward discussion. If you were to do it all over again, what would you do differently? I'm a young kid. I'm in my 20s. I'm taking notes, Ron. Give it to me straight. Or whatever their name was.
Yeah.
And I would get the eyes that would go up and to the left, which means I'm recalling. And they'd sit there like this. And Jeff, one after the other. I did this hundreds of times in different nursing homes. I heard about what I didn't do that I wish I had done. I heard about what I didn't say, what I didn't try. Never once did I hear, I did this and I really wished I didn't. I heard what I didn't do, what I didn't say, where I didn't take action. And I got to tell you, I wasn't really even planning on that, but I would write them down and it occurred to me one day. Now I'm like almost hoping somebody breaks the cycle. No one ever did. And then both grandmas died and I quit going to nursing homes. But boy, you talk about an imprint. It makes your point so perfectly. So this is where this philosophy of what are you more afraid of? The failure or regret. Well, failure can be your great, great teacher. Regret is like dragging a pallet board of bricks around your entire life. It just keeps getting heavier to where all of a sudden you can't pull them anymore. You just stop and go, that's it. Now I'm never going to try anything.
Yeah.
And the anti-you wins right there. The minute you stop, they declare victory, the anti-you. So you try things. Now, one thing that I haven't tried yet, but I'm going to, is to be in your plane, landing on your runway, which I hear is passenger untested. That's what I've heard. You've landed there, but Chris is still working up the gumption to be in the plane when you land. I don't need to work up the gumption. I hope we bounce our way in there. But
yeah.
I'm ready right now.
Yeah, we've had a few brave souls with me.
I have a couple that have landed so far.
It's pretty technical. Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah.
I need to get some more time behind the stick there, and then we'll do that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I love flying, but I'll tell you what, every time I get ready to go up, there's always that nervousness and that thought in the back of my head, and it's like, I got to land this damn thing. Mm-hmm. And I've landed it thousands of times.
Yeah.
Something about landing a tail dragger is just, you're the most present you'll ever be in your life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In any plane, that last quarter-mile descent, you are focused.
Oh, I having never flown a tail dragger, but nose heavy a couple times, where the front gear kind of takes the bounce.
Yeah.
If that front gear wasn't there, the prop would have hit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, no, I can see that this is a whole different attitude of landing, a lot more. And plus, with a plane like yours, you're not just landing on big, wide runways where you've got that 2% glide slope and a mile of runway. You're landing on, well, how your little runway at home, how many feet is that?
I give it 1,500.
Yeah.
Rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I dribbled my Kit Fox down the runway in Darrington once. and ground the propeller, and I won't say who told me what to do, but I took a piece of string, because there's a 3-blade propeller, and measured the lowest one, and took a hacksaw and cut them all off and flew it back over the mountains. And then another time I ground.
What if the FAA would have approved of that?
Yeah. Another time I ground looped it, because I landed in a tailwind out there in Burlington, and everybody was landing in a tailwind. I just assumed they were landing a headwind, but they're just too lazy to back taxi on the runway that was being worked on.
Right.
Followed the pattern. I couldn't stop the plane, tapped the brakes, spun out sideways, got pitched into the dirt, and had to put Gorilla Tape on that one and fly it back over.
Gorilla Tape, hacksaw. You got any baling wire with you?
I think I carry zip ties and stuff. It's just, I think landing's the most challenging, and it's not like it's dangerous, because I'm landing at 50, 60, and by the time my wheels are on the ground, I'm 40. So if you hit anything, you're just spinning out. It's like pulling the e-brake on a car in a patch of ice.
Right.
It just costs about $5,000 every time I do it.
Right. Yeah.
At best. That's frustrating.
At best. That's if you don't hit a wing.
Yeah, one was $10,000. Yeah, my propeller. So, but I love flying, and it's an obsession. There's always a little trepidation before I hop in my bird. It's like, okay, this is going to be a great flight. We're going to get there. It's going to be perfect. And there's been times where I've been up there wishing I was on the ground. And I've heard that it's better to be on the ground wishing you're flying than up in the air wishing you're on the ground. And I've had a couple of those experiences, and I've learned from them.
I had I had the most awesome instructor all the way through my multi-engine instrument commercial ratings. You know, I mean, I just stayed with her forever. But I interviewed, I would say, 30 different flight instructors, knowing that somebody's going to be in this right seat for a couple hundred hours, right?
Yeah.
But, oh, man, she the acid tests, we went out one day and said, all right, well, I called and said, well, I've already checked all the weather, this, that. Obviously, we're not flying today. She says, no, we're flying today. It's a big day for you. And I went, what, really? Yeah, no, get up here. I said, the freezing level's at like 1,000 feet. I mean, it's nasty. And, no, get up here. And we took off out of Payne, and we headed west, and we got right over the sound. And then she calls center and says, okay, we're going to climb and maintain 9,000 feet. And I looked at her and went, no, we're not. Well, she said, let's climb. I want you to feel this. And we climbed up in about 3,000 feet. Ice is gathering. And, you hit that point where all of a sudden you're not going up anymore. You're leveling, and then you start going down, and then you start losing control. And, oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And she put it in a pitch, and sure enough, at about 1,000 feet, the ice flies off. I'm telling you, even talking about it, my heart goes up to about 140, because it is a feeling that once you've felt what that's like, you will never fly over those Cascades. I don't care what you're in, without unbelievable equipment that can power and climb up through the ice and get way up on top. And, even with this, no, I'm not climbing over it, because when you start heading down, you're not going to get under 1,000 feet to get this ice off. You're going to go right into the mountain, and that's all there is to it. And, those Cascades are scattered with small plains.
Yeah.
Not a good feeling.
No, I only fly on blue sky days primarily, and I've been fortunate enough to make it through the dumb shit situations I got myself into. And when I got out on the ground, I've been on the ground with my legs shaking a few times, kissing the ground, saying,
right, thank you.
There's one of my 9 lives. Right. And flying, it's just, gosh, I mean, on a beautiful day, there's nothing like it. It's freedom.
It really is.
There's no state patrol up there trying to pull you over. You can go any speed you want, and it's beautiful.
If you have a desire to rotorcraft, float planes, I assume float planes.
That itches needing to be scratched in the future. I think a helicopter would be pretty nice to have, or a float plane. I have some buddies with float planes, and they love them. You know, eventually I'll have a PC-12 that we'll be able to kind of jump over to different locations with the family and
nice
stuff.
En route plane. Yeah.
Seen that already, that future. It's on its way.
You know, that vision, that ability to be there before you're there, and believe it, and navigate the world with expectation. I think that Jeff, is a part of the secret sauce. The second thing that in my notes about what is this black sheep, what is this one-off, is authenticity. It's my every sense of who you are. You're just not trying to be anything else. You're looking deeply to discover your true self, and that's a freeing thought in our world in this day and age. If you can take the pressure off that I've got to look like anyone else, be like anyone else, think like anyone else. When you throw all that out, it feels to me that it's just like taking off a huge backboard, just like, but it leaves you to like, well, now I'm obligated now with this freedom to be my very best self. And those are easy words to say, but decluttering yourself from the influences that are trying to mold, that are trying to cut in and say, no, you should do it this way. That, I mean, you can't help, at least the way my brain works. I looked at somebody the other day that had the dealer sticker still on, and it was like this. I don't even know what it was because they all looked the same. It was like a Honda, Toyota. It was a 4-door sedan. And then, as I'm looking at this dealer thing, right up at the same stoplight, pulls up this, I would say it was probably a 1968 4-door Mercedes with the white steering wheel. And it was just so pristine and classic and cool. And this guy that was driving it had this little fedora and this sport coat. And I just thought, they probably paid $50,000 for this car here. I bet my left arm that Mercedes doesn't cost $50,000.
Yeah.
What hit me is one person fit and another person was just sort of anonymous. You know what I mean? It's like, and forget the car metaphor. It's the clothes you wear, the way you choose to look, the way you choose to feel, the decisions that you make around your fitness, your nutrition, your space, or who's in your space, what you look at, the 50-mile principle outside your view. You know, all of these things that we can control to be who we are. Why don't we? Do we even think about that? I've had a principle that every home I've ever lived in since I was 19, I can see 50 miles. I just won't live in it if I can't see 50 miles. I want to unobstructed at least 50 miles. And they're out there, right?
Yeah.
But they're not out there in certain places. So for me, in my own personal choice, it really narrows down the playing field. You got to see 50 miles.
I love that.
Right? Why do people say, well, this is where I'm going to have to live? or this is as good as I can do, or this is the best I could hope for, or this is the most that I can afford, or all these concessionary statements that set ceilings. It's as good as it gets. How are you doing? Well, good as expected. Mm-hmm. I always want to go, well, what the hell are you expecting?
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe we have the world's most powerful supercomputer in between our ears. Mm-hmm. And they're all the same, pretty much. Mm-hmm. But some people are still running Microsoft DOS. And others have upgraded to Windows 14. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't upgrade the program mm-hmm. and the software, then the supercomputer runs slow. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at everything, it's just, I think it's a good analogy of how it works. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, are people putting the right data into their heads? Are they reading the right books? Are they learning from the right people? And right might be the wrong word, but empowering books. Mm-hmm. Stuff that's outside of mainstream. That's what I appreciate about Neville's work, or The Magic of Believing, or 3 Magic Words, or Wayne Dwyer's stuff, all that.
Dispenza.
I love Joe Dispenza, yeah. Mm-hmm. Becoming mm-hmm. Supernatural, and mm-hmm. You Are the Placebo, and mm-hmm. I'm programming my dad, who actually programmed me when I was a kid. I'm like, Dad, you're already healed. He's in the hospital. I'm like, I already seen you walking out of here and playing with our kids and stuff, and I'm like, and he's like, you're right. And he always used to tell me, visualize, like he'd tell my little brother when he was golfing, he'd be like, you got to visualize the golf ball going into the hole. And Jimmy would be like, whatever, Dad, because my dad never played golf. But now it's like, oh shit, there's wisdom there. And now we're regurgitating that back to him. And
right. Right.
But back to what I was saying is, when you put empowering data into your mind, mm-hmm. then the results are going to be upgraded.
Right.
And most people stop learning after high school. And so they've just been given programs that work to feed the machine, the industrial machine.
Mm-hmm. You said earlier you spent somewhere around $500,000.
Easily.
And I think the statistic is that less than 3% of Americans after high school spend a dime on education, right? Mm-hmm. So it's that spending yourself in growth. Right?
Yeah. And what education? As the way the world is now, my kids won't go to college. Yeah. I'm not going to train them to be tiny little terrorists.
Yeah.
You might have to edit that out. But they would go to Tony Robbins.
Sure.
They would go to, they would go somewhere that's going to really teach them to personal development. College is good for doctor, if you're going to be a doctor or an attorney or something like that. But
yeah,
I prefer that they just get into investing and do that. But obviously, they're on their own journey as well. I can't.
Right. You're sort of gently hurting.
I'll just be the riverbanks,
Right.
But some things are better than caught than taught. My boy Maverick, he's 6 years old, and he just thinks he's so strong. He walks around with his shirt off, flexing his muscles. And the other day, his sister was picking on him, and Ellie's, how old is Ellie? She's 13. I said, Ellie, one day Maverick's going to be able to take you. And he said, I already can take her. You're right, Maverick, you can.
You mentioned your brother a couple of times. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have a younger brother. He just turned 40 on June 28th. That's why we're over in Forks.
Nice.
He works for the railroad.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just turned 40, and you're 43.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I have a similar age gap between my brother and I. He's not quite 2 years older than I am. But the brothers, at least mine, when we were growing up, it's like, this is my room, this is yours. And there was like 2 steps between, and boy, you better be on your side of the step, or game on. Yeah. It's changed over the years. But I think that's a great thing. And especially when, I don't know, I've become very close to my brother this last year and a half with my folks, both getting sick and passing, and it's been great that he's definitely carried the lion's share of the effort with that. But it's been great to spend time with him. It would be who had their phone on? I can't believe it. That's one I didn't even think about. It's been great to have that support during this last challenging time. So
yeah. Huh. Brings you closer, huh? It shows you what's important, really, because all this money and stuff is great. It gives you options, but really, what matters at the end of the day is relationships.
Well, and I think what's so interesting in our discussion, I'm sure people have pulled out that these meetings that you're having, today is just an example. It's a slice out of your life, but you can tell that you're genuinely excited to be with people and explore and connect. And let's hear about your story. How can I get in the game here?
Yeah.
And I think it's because of this philosophy. You recognize there's the goal. I'm not here to get something. I'm here to just experience you and see where this goes. It's the adventure of it. And when you go in with that, you win all the time. There's no win or lose, or I got it or I didn't get it, or all this win-lose kind of scenario. It's like, no. My objective was to lean into this person and understand them. And I can win 100% of the time because I'm in control of that. Right? So
yeah, I just love people.
Yeah.
Even the ones that are assholes, they're usually an asshole because they're hurting. It's like, okay, what's really going on?
Well, and it's interesting, Jeff, that you say outwardly you love people and that you're into people, but some would call you introverted or somewhat reserved. I've learned that that's really not the right word. It's just the processing is very deep. It's your processing isn't outward. It's very inward in your head. You're figuring things out. But I think that all by itself says that we can misread situations, as you just noted,
Yeah. I mean, the other day I'm not perfect by all means. I was in Port Angeles at the Safeway, and there's this person that had this vest that said ACAB, and that means all cops are bastards, and then BLM and Antifa, and I lost myself, and I'm just staring. I'm like, I could just feel like these emotions building up in me, and I'm like, where's this coming from? And then my wife had to like wake me up. She's like, Jeff, and I'm just like, right? Not like I wanted to fight him or anything, but I'm just like,
yeah.
I had awareness of a little bit of challenge with that,
right?
I think it's probably just ingrained in me. Maybe my ancestors somehow were in like. There's a fighter in me too, like, and that's probably a whole nother podcast of where like I'm obsessed with not fighting people, but like becoming tougher, training with weapons, training jiu-jitsu, training that kind of stuff. And
right.
It's in my DNA.
Being prepared. Yeah.
I've had experiences where people have pissed me off, and then I air quotes won, if you will. And then after that, I was like, that wasn't worth it.
Right. Yeah,
I felt like a shithead, like winning in conflict, and then you're like, okay, that wasn't great. Now, if someone was trying to hurt my family, I would gladly make them pick their teeth up with broken fingers, and not think twice about it. But it's something like stupid road rage or someone yelling at me. It's just
right.
Like, okay.
This is that ascension of vibration. Is that I could solve it here in this way,
Yeah.
and probably break a finger or two or whatever.
Yeah.
But, or I can draw on a higher, a higher quality within me, to see if I can solve it, here and not move my emotion gauge all over the place.
Yeah.
Or beat up my body.
This life it's interesting, it's like we're just consistently learning, and my best weapon is my Nikes. I can just run away if I have to,
72 miles worth, at least.
Yeah. And unless there's a chance where I don't have that option or I have to protect someone else,
Right.
And most people are great. I think they all are. Some people are just hurting, and they're all fighting different battles that we know nothing about. Right?
What? Give me one really important thought as it relates to this. I don't want to put this in time and space because everything you've said is timeless. But after this, I don't even know if I want to call it a debate that was on the TV the other night. What is our chance? What is our way forward in a positive way with the political environment of our country right now? You're a deep thinker.
I think we're watching a movie. And politics, if we're not careful, can have, and this happened to me, an impact on our lives. But it's just to grab your attention. And there's a theory that the world's ran by like 100 families or something like that. And so I look at all the countries as football teams. And they're just kind of like pitting them against each other, right? Just like football. They have people watch football, nothing against it. I don't watch it, but it's just to distract people so other people's interests can be served and they can just slide things in, right? So it's kind of a distraction. And I obviously, I'm not a Biden supporter. And so, but I think even when Trump gets back in office, the guys that come in with their black coats, their suits, tell him what to do. Right? Like, I believe, and I could be wrong, there's a theory that the CIA, the three-letter agencies, run the country. And that's why the politicians are scared of them and they do whatever they say, right? Which then is also controlled by BlackRock and the Carlyle Group. And so it's all kind of ran by money in the Federal Reserve. And so if you really zoom out and go out 30,000 feet, it's a spiritual battle. Politics is just like such a small thing in the whole thing. There's the enemy that's trying to control people or depopulate them. And then there's God, right? That's trying to do the opposite. And the good always wins. It's a long answer. But good always wins.
I like the perspective. And you're right. There's so much anxiety. There's so much trepidation. It carries from this medium of media to this, and then it gets internalized, and then it goes outward, and it comes home, and everybody's tense, and you're walking on eggshells, and it creates division, and you think, wow, boy, this is exactly what the enemy wants, is just a bunch of people ready to kill each other, right? You know? Yeah. I like the perspective, Jeff.
And that's what they do. You know, they just play their little football teams, AKA countries, against each other. And it's just, it's a war planet we live on.
Yeah.
And I guess being a father and a husband, I can't shut that part off. And that's why I focus on sovereignty and freedom.
Right. Yeah.
And self-reliance.
Well, that independent nature of the entrepreneur, it comes through your bloodstream in every part of you. You're the quintessential. I had a very I have a huge draw towards those who they're the CEO of every department, whether they know anything or not. And that's the entrepreneur. And I look at this as sort of an extension of that when we think independently, when we're somewhat fearless about, I don't know it, but I can learn it. I can dive in. I can know it. I can get better at this. That draws me in a big way. And you're drawing a crowd. And it's fun to watch you showcased on various podcasts. And I was at a live event about a month ago, and there you are on stage. And it's a privilege to have a voice in tandem with where you're going. And so I really appreciate you being here. I want people to be careful how you reach out to let them know, but I want them to be able to get a hold of you to ask questions and to shoot comments your way and to challenge you, which I know you'll be up for.
Yeah.
What medium do you best operate that way with?
Social media, Instagram, my handle's JLathamator, and then Jeff Latham, obviously on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Through social media is the best way. Excellent.
Yeah. And for now, I won't be responding rapidly because the icons are off my phone hidden from me.
Right. Well, I do my best as we start with a word or a phrase, and I do my best to put a bow on the consider challenge at the end. And to me, there's a lot of different directions I can go after this discussion, but to me, the theme that comes through that is the real challenge is this idea of authenticity and becoming your very best, most authentic self. Original, one of one, take ownership of that. That's what I see in you. And that to me is the challenge that jumps off the page that you offer everywhere around you. You play your own game, and everybody goes, what is that guy all about? What is he about? How does he think? I wish there were a lot more people out there that created that reaction in people. Just taking ownership of your thoughts, your mind, who you are and how you think, the awareness piece. This has been awesome, buddy, and I really appreciate the working this in. This isn't on your way to anything.
Thank you.
It would be more on your way if you were flying. We'll have to do that next time, right?
Yeah, it's been actually surprisingly therapeutic for me.
Well, I will also be listening to this again because there's so much that came out of your brain that I want to just take some notes myself. So thank you for being here. In September, when we have a day at the hangar, you got a parking spot right out there.
Perfect.
Plane, and we'll do it again, okay?
Yes, we will.
All right. And thank you for being with us. I hope you contact Jeff. And until next week, Pinneo, God bless you.